Hi and welcome to the SEO UK Photoshop Essential Tutorial videos. We're going to be using Photoshop version CS6. Versions 2 and above are pretty much the same in how they work, but sometimes I will cover more than one option on how to do something to help out users of older versions. Now first we're going to cover some basics, specifically different types of files or different file types, what they are and when you should be using each type. Okay, let's bring up Photoshop and let's click on File, Open, and just grab an image to play with. Let's go with a picture of my son. I think that's a BMP file which we're going to cover. Yep, BMP. Okay, file types. The majority of the time we'll be working with JPEG files. This is the most commonly used file type on the web as it's a compressed file, so the load time is reduced. Whereas the same file in a BMP would be much larger, so it would actually slow down your website and take longer for that image to load up on the website. Okay, let me show you exactly what I mean by the file size, and let's look at the save options. If we go to File and choose Save As, this is the sort of standard Save As option which you'll be using while you're working on your images. And what you want to be saving your images as while you're working on them is a Photoshop PSD file, okay? Because that will keep all the formatting, all the layers, gradients, shapes, all the tools that we use to make the images. You will still be able to use them. Once you change an image to a flat image such as a JPEG, then it limits what you can do with that. Okay, so while you're working on your image, always save it as a PSD file and always keep a final version of that before you then create it as a web version. Now the web version of the graphics, as it says, JPEG. There are others such as GIF and PNG, which we'll cover in a moment, but let's say we want to save this as a JPEG. Instead of doing it through this, what I'm actually going to do is go back and go Save for Web. This will actually give me a couple of preset options, which are PNG, GIF and JPEG. Those are the ones that we're mostly going to use, mostly PNG and JPEG. So let's actually choose JPEG, and it puts the quality at 60%. I can up or increase or decrease that if I want to. Now this is quite a large image. Let's click on Save. It will ask me to give it a name. Now I've already got one as .bmp, so I'm not going to overwrite the original one because this is now saving it as .jpg, okay, as a JPEG. So I'm going to click on Save. If we now click on File and Open, you can see we've got two copies. One's the BMP and one is the JPEG. If we actually change the view so you can see the details, they are these two images here. Now you can see the difference in the size between a JPEG and a bitmap. They're the same image, but the difference in size is significant. This one is almost 3 megabytes, this one's 160K. So you can see how saving your files in the right format can make them a lot smaller and a lot quicker to load on your website. And as we know, that is something that Google look at for your website, how quick it loads. So it's always important to choose the correct file format for our graphics when we're saving them, which is why I'm going to go through the other file types that are available. Okay, so let's have a quick run through the other commonly used file types. The next one really to cover is .gif. It's called a CompuServe GIF. .gif. This type of graphic allows you to have transparency or transparent backgrounds, and what it's mostly used for is multi-layering, which basically allows you to have an animated image. You've probably seen them. They're often used for funny clips and things like that, just so you can have it as a small graphic that is animated. The next one is a .png. Now .png is used a lot for web graphics, specifically because you can have, again, a transparent background. Now transparent background is basically, instead of having a white background, if you've got an image of something and it's got a white background to it and you're putting it somewhere on a website that has a black background, obviously the white background is going to stand out. You may want to get rid of that, so you just have the image and the white disappears. That's what a transparent background is, and it's one of the reasons why we use PNG so much. If you are using a GIF or a PNG that has a background and you want to make it transparent, you actually need to remove the background, which you can do in Photoshop. The next type that we're going to look at is a TIFF. You probably can't see it, it's just off the bottom here. Let me move this back up so you can actually see that on the list. It's a .tif or TIFF. Now that is a file type that generally comes directly from a high quality camera, usually used by photographers for that reason. They are also very large files, so if you're starting from that kind of image type, then you should convert it to a JPEG or a PNG to use it on the web, because otherwise, again, like a BMP, it's going to be too big. And the next one we've already covered briefly is a .bmp, which is an uncompressed file type. Here it is on the list, .bmp. So it's an uncompressed format, usually from drawings or screen prints. You'll probably be most familiar with it from Windows Paint, as it's a default format for that program. Again, we wouldn't recommend this type because it is a bloated and larger image, so much larger than you want to use on a website. Now there are other formats of images. You can see there's a whole list here, but those are the ones that we're really going to be using most of the time. The ones we're most interested in, first of all, is the PSD format for saving your work while it's in progress and saving a master version before you then save it as a web version, usually as a .jpeg or a .png. Okay, we're going to leave this video here. We're going to move on to the next one, which is looking for images to use. But probably the most important thing to take away from this introduction video is to save your work as you go along using the PSD format, so that you can always come back and make changes to it and keep a master copy of that before you create your web ready version. Okay, saving as you go along, just in case Photoshop crashes, means you don't lose your work, because on most versions of Photoshop, I think CS6 may have an autosave, but earlier versions certainly don't have an autosave facility. So make sure you save as you're going along, as you're working on the graphic. Okay, thanks very much for watching. Please feel free to move on to the next video.